what's your current net worth and, what does that breakdown look like?
So current net worth is right in the $4 million range. When I left the corporate job and I started my own thing, it was almost like a light bulb went on. And it was like, this is what I was meant to do. This is where I find joy. This is where I find energy. I don't feel burned out. I kind of had a little bit of an epiphany to where it was like, you know what? What's really important in my life? Is it money? It's not. It's
Mike, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Jackson. It's a pleasure.
How did you first get your start early in your career? What did that look like for you?
So early in my career, I was finishing up school and I was trying to find a job, degree in finance. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I found a job at a construction company, construction/engineering. And I thought to myself, okay, this will just be temporary. I don't really want to work in the construction or engineering space. But 25 years later, I'm still kind of working in the construction and engineering landscape a little bit. That job led me to another job in Las Vegas to where I spent over 15 years with that company. And I finished, as their VP of finance slash CFO role. I later learned that what I was doing with them was not bringing me a lot of joy or energy. It was really burning me out. I was traveling a lot. So about almost 3 years ago, I left corporate America and I started my own consulting firm. And it's a management consulting firm. Like you said, we offer CFO advisory services, fractional CFO services. So it's been a real fun treat to start my own business and to really help companies grow and succeed and see their worth and not just make guesswork at where they're at or how they're going to get there.
Oh, okay. So you've had some pretty significant shifts over the course of your career from working in corporate to working for yourself. When you were working in that construction industry, you talked about finding things that bring you energy versus taking energy from you. And I've been hearing that as a recurring theme from a lot of different millionaires I've been talking to. There's always that balance of trying to find something that you can provide for yourself, but then also pursuing something that you're passionate about. Would you say that with starting your business 3 years ago, is that really when you started pursuing your passion, or were you able to do that kind of throughout your corporate career as well?
Well, I think during my corporate career, I kind of, saw glimpses of that passion. I love to focus on, building leaders and helping leaders grow when I was working within, the corporate foundation. And I like to help the businesses that I was a part of within that, giant corporate conglomerate, learn how to grow and succeed. But I always felt like it didn't really fill my bucket. And so I was kind of helping a few people on the side while I was still working at that company. And I thought, you know what? This stuff is what brings me joy and energy. I need to find a way to bring that into my life. And when I left the corporate job and I started my own thing, it was almost like a light bulb went on. And it was like, this is what I was meant to do. This is where I find joy. This is where I find energy. I don't feel burned out. I'm traveling to see my clients because I want to go, not because I have to get on a plane. So it was really fun to notice the shift in my life once I kind of figured out that that was kind of just burning me out slowly. And I had to change it. Nobody else could change it, but I had to step in and change.
Wow. Okay. I love that, by the way. I'm a little bit earlier in my career than you are, but I still feel like we have so many similarities in our background because I know exactly that feeling that you're describing of like that slow burn and just realizing that you
Yeah.
need to make a change.
Yeah, it's rough. It's so rough. It's rough on you as the person, it's rough on your family. And especially when, that burnout starts to hit and you bring it home with you to your family and they can tell. My kids, often joke, "Oh, we could tell a change in dad immediately once he started his own thing. He was happier, he was more present." So it was, really noticeable for my family as well as myself. So I'm glad that I realized before it was too late that I needed to make a change in my life.
That's great. Was it scary to do so? Like, was it, when you had this realization that this job I have in Las Vegas is burning me out. I'm traveling all the time. I need to make a change. Was it just like natural, like, yeah, I'm going to go off and start my own thing? Or was that like a big leap of faith or felt scary? What was that process like?
It was really scary. I always say that, starting business of your own is not for the weak or the faint of heart, because there's a lot of times where you're like, am I really doing the right thing? Fear kind of grips you and you think, I should have just stayed at my job. But then when you have those successes, you're like, this is why I'm doing this. And it was hard because I'd established myself with this company and I'd been there a long time, and not that things were great for me there either. It was the company was changing and I felt a shift there, and so there was a lot of just reasons of I needed to change. And but the biggest is I had a steady paycheck and all the perks that came along with that, a vehicle allowance, really good insurance benefits, all these things that I was cashing in to walk out the door. So there was a lot of conversations at home about, is this the right thing to do? And ultimately, we felt, my wife and I, that this was the right direction. And it's been really good for us going forward.
Wow, that's awesome. So you counseled together with your wife. Definitely a good idea. Has she had a career as well, or have you been the primary breadwinner for the family?
I've been the primary breadwinner for the family. We've been fortunate enough to have her be able to stay home with our three kids, so that was, kind of what she chose and what she wanted to do. And now that we've started this on our own, she helps me out. She helps me with some of the marketing and other things. And, when clients come to town or we go to see clients, when possible, she comes with me or, attends those things. But she's been a super big support to me from behind the scenes of, hey, you got this. That was great. I can't believe that, you know, you have the guts to just call somebody and say, "Hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. Do you want to meet?" And she's like, and you get people to meet with you. So it's been great to have her, in my corner cheering me on.
Wow, that's awesome. My wife is also a superstar, and has done so much to support me behind the scenes. And you mentioned how it was kind of scary making this change. One thing I've felt in my own life, I started my personal finance business about 2.5 years ago. And I like to tell people that the price of entrepreneurship is uncertainty.
Definitely. Percent. Yeah, you never know, right? It's like you think in your mind, I have this great idea and this service that I can offer people. And you just in your mind somehow you think that everybody's just gonna jump at that chance, like, yeah, I want that, I want that. And then you talk to people and they're just kind of disinterested in what you have to say or what you have to offer. And you think, okay, the next person. But when you find those people that really want it and they really put forth the effort, it's all worth it then, because you look at it and go, "Oh, all that hard work went into helping this company, and look how they've succeeded with the changes that we've made together." So, you're right. Entrepreneurship is hard, and it comes with a price.
So you made that transition about 3 years ago. From a financial perspective, how did you know that you were ready to make the leap to quit your comfortable corporate job and go off on your own?
So, I guess we'll call it a little bit of luck. The company that I worked for, they are a very large subcontractor. They have offices all over the world, and they have kind of an interesting compensation program that they offer. Depending on the businesses that you're a part of within the company, you can make pretty sizable bonuses year in and year out. Plus, they're an ESOP, so they offer employee stock options. And after 5 years with the company, you're fully vested. And so after being with them for over 15 years, I had racked up, quite a good amount of stock, and I had been able to save quite a bit of money from the bonuses that I had received. We've been able to live off of the salary and some other investments that we had made. And so it made it to the point where it kind of took some of the fear out of, taking that leap of faith, right? There was still a leap of faith, but it was like, okay, we have money to survive a certain period of time without a paycheck every single month or every, couple of weeks. And so it's either now we do it or it will never happen, because, you know, you just keep putting it off and keep putting it off. And so there comes a time when it's okay, we're going to make the decision and we're going to run with it. And that's what we did. So, it was there was a lot of other factors that kind of happened behind the scene, but we really looked at it and was like, okay, hey, this is as good a time as any. The kids are getting a little bit older. We're established. We purchased a home. We've done all these things that we wanted to do. Now let's do some stuff that, maybe will help us get to the next level.
Okay, that's awesome. So you had the war chest, so to speak, of some savings that you could rely on as you're working on scaling your business and finding clients. Can we talk about your net worth? What's your current net worth, and what does that breakdown look like?
So current net worth is right in the $4 million range. I like I mentioned before, when I left my corporate job, I left with a pretty sizable 401k.
Mm.
When I walked out the door with it at the time, it was about $2.7 million
Wow.
of wealth that I'd accumulated. And, that stock just rolled over into a 401k, which I've since, invested into other areas after leaving the company. A couple of the other things that helped me build wealth was, as I mentioned, as I worked there and I received bonuses, I was able to invest some of those bonuses. And, some of those I think I planned out pretty well, and I was able to invest in a few companies that I got a pretty good return on my investment from investing that. So we were able to do that. And then, we own a home which we don't owe a ton on in Southern California, and it has, increased our net worth as well. So, it's just kind of accumulated pretty quickly over the past, call it 10 years. And, it's afforded us to be able to do things that we would have never imagined that we've been able to do otherwise.
All right. So it sounds like a combination of factors here of a 15-year process of being smart with your benefits that you received at your corporate job of bonuses, 401k contributions, investment contributions, and then maybe also buying a home at the right time that it's appreciated over time as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, that was the other thing. We bought a home. It's been 8 years ago in Southern California, and everybody kept telling us, "Oh, you're crazy. Prices are going to drop. Prices are going to drop." But they have not dropped in 8 years, and so we got in when we thought it was high, and it has increased even that much more. So, pretty fortunate to be able to have done some things at the time that we did them at. It made good financial sense for us to do it when we did it. So, got lucky there.
Would you say that your background in finance, obviously getting your degree in finance, working as a fractional CFO, how has that impacted the personal financial decisions that you make?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've learned how to be really conservative about, what we do and how we spend our money, and sometimes maybe even to a fault. And I think that was, kind of what held me back a little bit at the beginning. The first, call it 5 years that I worked for, in my corporate job, I was getting bonuses, but I was afraid of investing because, I didn't want to lose what I had. And so I kind of just dug a hole and hid my head in the sand, thinking that, hey, if I put this in the savings account, it's safe. It's going to generate some interest, but it wasn't much, right? It wasn't giving me any real return on, my money there. So I spoke to a financial advisor, and he's like, "Hey, we can do some things that are pretty safe for you with how you, focus your funds in your 401k as well as your own personal money that you have to where you're not going to lose, but it's going to be a win-win." So, we did some stuff, and, we did some short-term investments, some long-term investments that were able to help us, generate some wealth that we wouldn't otherwise have had. And I kind of kick myself thinking, hey, what would have happened if I had those 5 years back that, I kind of just let it sit in savings and not really invested it.
If you're feeling behind in your finances and aren't sure of the next step forward, reach out to me. I have a limited number of individual coaching spots available and would be happy to help you. Use the link in the description below to reserve your free consultation today.
you know, there's always, hindsight's always 2020 when you look back and you think, hey, what if, what if? Well, I'm glad that I did it at the time I did it because it really catapulted where we were sitting from a wealth standpoint.
So there was this period in your life where you were very conservative with your financial approach. And then it was this critical turning point where you met with a financial advisor that gave you some recommendations that encouraged you to be more aggressive, and that's really helped fuel the growth of your money over time?
It has. Yeah, it has. I mean, and not to say that we, don't take vacations or things like that, but we're more intentional on those purchases and on those trips that we take, and it's, hey, what's our purpose in doing this? And how, if we're going to take this trip, how do we pay for it now instead of pay for it over 5 years by putting it on a credit card? So it's kind of like, how do we do this and keep ourselves mostly out of debt but still have experiences with our family and our kids that make memories? So it's been kind of a juggling act of, okay, what makes sense and when does it make sense, and how do we do this that it doesn't affect you know how we spend and use our money going forward, because we're tied down to something we can't pay for.
Right now, I just have one 2-year-old son, and I've got a second one on the way, but I'm sure eventually I'll have
Awesome.
3 teenagers and have to weigh those same questions
Yeah.
myself as well.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun as the kids get older and you see them grow up and they play sports, and you know, our oldest daughter is serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so there's all these things that we watch happen in our kids' lives, and it's just so fun to see that happen and be a part of it and see how they can change the world themselves.
That's incredible. I think you've touched on this, talking about creating family memories, vacations, and experiences with your kids. How would you say that your view of money has changed over the course of your life?
You know what? That's a great question, and when I think about that, it's changed significantly over time. It used to be, if I can just get this promotion, or I wish my bonus would have been a little bit bigger. If it would have been bigger, we could have done this or that with it. I had the mindset where I treated people like things and things like people. I was always consumed with, okay, we what if we sell our house and buy a bigger house, or I need a new car, or the next newest thing that came out, because I felt like, hey, I'm in this bracket of earnings that I should be able to just have these things, right? As you look around, especially in Orange County, California, you see a lot of that, kind of keeping up with the Joneses. But right before I left my corporate job, I kind of had a little bit of an epiphany to where it was like, you know what? What's really important in my life? Is it money? It's not. It's time with family. It's time with my people that I love. It's experiencing things to where, that was the big reason that I made that jump and I left corporate, because I thought, you know what? I don't have to have the nicest, newest all the time. We have a great house. We live in a great area. Let's do something that can bring us closer together as a family, that it also can provide for us, and we can make those memories instead of dad being on a plane halfway across the country and having to meet the family for a vacation and then leave during the vacation to go back to work and do all that stuff. So my view of money really changed. I thought to myself, you know what, I have money, is sitting in a retirement account. If we keep going in the direction we're going to be fine when we hit the retirement age. Now let's actually do something that's going to be meaningful to us. How do we help people? How do we help businesses? How do we serve? And I really don't feel like I could have done that to the extent that I wanted to if I would have stayed where I was at. I needed to have a little bit of freedom to, really look outside my box to, how do I help people? How do I help companies grow? And sometimes people will come to me and say, hey, I know you charge X amount of dollars per hour, but I really need help. Can you do it for this? Well, yeah, hey, let's look at every situation as it comes. 10 years ago, I probably would have said, no, it's this price or nothing. But my views really changed to where it's, you know, not that I didn't know the importance of all those things, but now I really realize the importance of those things. And money is just a thing, and you can always get more of it. You can find another job, you can find another client. You can't find your family again. You can't get back that time you've lost. You can't get those experiences back that you missed out on. So it was kind of this huge shift in mindset and a trade of, you know what? We're completely fine. We don't need to keep pushing for more and more and more all the time. Let's be happy and continue to make memories and do that. And I'm kind of saying that I don't feel like money matters. Well, it does because we have to pay our bills and our house payment and all that stuff that goes onto it. But it kind of took on a different meaning to me of, it's not the end all be all. It's important, but it's not at the top of my list anymore.
Thank you for sharing. That's a beautiful perspective. If I had to summarize in my own words what I just learned from you, is that it sounds like that mindset shift you went through was you went from asking yourself the question of what can I gain from this, right? Like, can I get a bigger bonus? Can I get a bigger house? And you shifted to what impact can I create from
Yeah.
this? What sort of impact can I create for a better life for my family? What sort of impact can I create for better results for clients and the businesses that I serve?
Yes, 100%. And, I think most importantly, what impact can we as a family make in our community, in our church, with people around us? We've really been focused on helping our kids give back and learn to serve and be service minded to where, "Hey, we're going to go do this and help somebody, and we're not gonna do it for money. They're not gonna pay us. We're gonna do it because they need the help, not because we're expecting something in return." And I think that's really changed all of our mindsets at our house about, hey, when we serve, it makes us happy, and we'll be taken care of when we serve. So,
Yeah. I've seen that play out in my own life as well. I don't know if you've ever read the book The Go Giver, but it's a great, great read and it really illustrates some of the principles that you're talking about right now.
great book, love that book.
Yeah. And bringing faith into the conversation here a little bit as well. Obviously, there's some biblical principles of generosity and service and giving towards others. And it really is an act of faith to do those things when you feel like you also have to provide for your own needs. But I can say from firsthand experience that I've seen every time I take that step into the dark of being a little more generous than what I'm comfortable with, it's like God just like dumps all these blessings on me
Right.
tenfold. So I'm sure
Yeah.
you've had the same experience.
Yeah. It's I have, and it's such a great feeling to have, and especially to watch your kids realize it as they get older of, serving brings those blessings from God.
Thinking about people that are your kids' age, maybe they're just kind of getting their start in their career. What's one piece of advice that you would share with them?
One piece of advice that I would really share with the younger generation, and I tell my kids this all the time: find something that you're passionate about and pursue it aggressively. Work hard. It might take time. But in the end, once you figure it out, go all in because there's always somebody out there that's going to try to outwork you or work harder or do all these things to try to get ahead of you. So if you really want to, like my son wants to play professional golf, you got to work hard. There's somebody out there working harder. You want to get good grades in school, you got to work hard. You come out of college, find a job that you're passionate about and pursue it. Go after it aggressively. And if it doesn't bring you joy and energy, start thinking about what do I really want to do and how do I do that? Because I look back and I was like, hey, this is the job that I want. A job in finance where I can do this and this. And it was great. It was a great catapult and stepping stone to get me to where I wanted to be. But ultimately, it wasn't where I wanted to be. And it took me a while to really figure that out. And, now that I figured it out, I'm super passionate about what I do. I'm really aggressive. You know, I'm constantly trying to figure out how do I help my clients? How do I do this? So for younger generation, pursue it, be passionate, be aggressive, and just work hard.
Find what gives you energy, find what you're passionate about, and pursue it with tenacity. You mentioned you're a BYU football fan. I am as well. And Kalani Sitake had a great quote in the huddle the other day. He said, "Stay humble and stay hungry." And I think that's what
Yeah,
you're describing as well.
definitely. Stay humble, stay hungry. That's a great quote by Coach Sataki. I love it.
So, Mike, looking back over the course of your life and your career up to this point, what would you say is your biggest financial regret?
Not starting sooner with doing what I wanted to do. Not investing sooner, not being passionate about where I want it to go, just kind of being passive, more of like, hey, I kind of waited for it to come to me. And I thought, if I just keep doing my job, it will just come to me. But I needed to be more passionate about what I wanted out of a career, not what was going to come to me. And it took me a long time to realize that, you know, those people that I worked with that were really moving up the ladder fast, they were super passionate about what they did, almost to being aggressive to getting what they wanted. And, it took me a while to be like, hey, I have to be aggressive. I can't just be passionate. I have to really pursue this. And I don't know. It was the fear of the unknown, right? The fear of working for a company that I didn't know a lot of people at, kind of just waited. And, ultimately it didn't hurt me. I'm where I want to be now, but I probably would have been there 5 years sooner if I had have been a little bit more aggressive at what I was doing.
Kind of that idea of if you don't advocate for yourself, who will?
Right. Nobody else cares. Nobody else cares about you, right? Like, you're at a big company. If you're not going to go in and say, hey, I want this or I need more money, they're not going to just say, oh, hey, Mike's been great. We're going to give him a 10% raise or whatever. Yeah, really, like you said, you have to go advocate for yourself.
So, Mike, what would you say is the meaning of a good life for you?
The meaning of a good life for me is, I've really figured this out over the past few years. Spending time with family, making memories and having those experiences with your family that, if you don't take those opportunities to have those experiences, that time's going to pass you by. And we all know that time is a robber, time is a thief, and you will not get that time back. And, it's been great as our kids have gotten older and we've been able to, you know, do a little bit more to go some of these places to, experience these these memories with our kids and to, show them some things. Like this summer, I served my LDS mission in East Africa and I hadn't been back for 30 years. And we took our kids there. Well, not our daughter, she's on her mission, but the other two, we took them back and met people that I knew there and they got to see where I served my mission. And that was a super cool experience to have, right? To take my kids back to where I once was a long time ago. So, those things mean a lot to me. It's not the money or the houses or the cars. It's quality time, experiences.
That is so cool. Going back to your mission, it's such a unique experience. I served a mission as well for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I went to Guatemala on my mission, and
Nice.
my wife, she went to Zimbabwe, so she actually went to Africa as well.
Awesome.
And we kind of talk about it where it's like it's this 2-year period of your life that just feels like it was a dream because it's such a different world
Yeah,
than what we
totally.
live in today.
Yeah.
But before our son was born, my wife and I had the chance to go back and visit my mission together, and that was just such an incredible experience to, like, share that part of my life with her of, who I was before she met me, and it's yeah, it's hard to really capture the impact that that has on you and how it changes you as an individual, and it's something that I'll keep with me for the rest of my life, so
That's so cool. I love it. That's awesome.
well, Mike, it's been an incredible experience talking to you, getting to know more of your story today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with me. And I want you to know just how much I appreciate you being willing to hop on and being willing to share. Thank you. Where can people find you?
So people can find me on LinkedIn, Mike Kennett, or you can look me up on my website, KennettConsultingGroup.com.
Okay. Awesome. Go check out Mike and he does great work. So thank you, Mike. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the show for more episodes like this one.